Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Fita. I'm here as Rochelle Conant's designee.
Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I figured, but I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah. Well, you never know these days, right?
We'll get started in just a little bit. Josh, we don't quite have a quorum yet.
All right, good. Like, I have the worst dead arm right now after that shot.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Just dead arm?
Yeah, it stinks. Like
It's that bad, huh?
It's not. Yeah.
Worse than a flu shot?
No, but what I'm trying to figure out though is, like one of my employees has already had COVID, and then she got the shot this morning, and I was just talking to her. She's like, "Man, I'm not feeling good. Am I just thinking this in my head?" I'm like, "No, that second shot wrecks you. If you already had COVID, the first shot, it is like the worst chills, and it hits you hard."
Great. Well, I already had it, so I'm not looking forward to my shot this afternoon then.
Yeah, it might be a good time to go home and rest and lay in bed for like the next 10 or 12 hours.
I'll try to clear that with the missus, but I doubt I'll be given that reprieve. Thanks for the information. I'm looking forward to this now.
Yeah, but the good news is like the next day I heard you feel like great, like perfectly fine. So just like, hey, just give me 12 hours, sweetie. That's all I need.
That's all I need for the rest of my life. Just give me 12. I promise.
Right. Nothing more, nothing less.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Josh, you're good whenever.
Is this all we're having?
Yeah, Judge Parker just joined us too, so we'll have.
Yeah,
Yep,
Judge.
we're good.
Okay, awesome. See, we're having fun already. So, good afternoon. I am calling to order the February 2021 meeting for the Juvenile Justice Council. We have a few new participants with us today, and so I'd like to begin with introductions. My name is Josh Axelson. I serve as the Vice Chair for the Juvenile Justice Council, and I am also the Coordinator of Alternative Programs at the Kane County Regional Office of Education.
It might be easiest if I just go through that as I have everyone, just so we're not all jumping in at the same time. So I'm Julia Schick. I coordinate the Kane County Juvenile Justice Council. And then Kristen, you're next on my screen.
Hello, I'm Kristen Morsdorfer. I am with the Juvenile Officers Association for Kane County with Mountain Police as well.
You, Latanya.
Hi, my name is Latanya Hill from Kane County Probation, and here today as Lisa's designee.
Nick, I know you already introduced yourself, but
Go ahead. I'm Nick Fida. I'm with the Public Defender's Office. I am Miss Conant's designee. I've been instructed not to talk, but as I'm sure Judge Parga can attest, I don't follow directions well.
all right, thank you. All right, Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Bear. I'm an assistant state's attorney in Kane County, and Ms. Mosser is also at another meeting this afternoon. So I'm here from the state's attorney's office.
You, Judge Parga.
Hi, I'm Sandra Parga. I am the juvenile delinquency court judge here in Kane County.
Judge Kirianis.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kirianis. I'm the judge in abuse neglect.
And Commander Frieders.
Good afternoon, Commander Mike Frieders, Geneva Police, here on behalf of the Kane County Chiefs of Police Association.
Next, everyone.
Great, thank you so much for the introductions. On the email that Julia sent out with the agenda, she also included minutes from the December and January meeting. And so can you all please take time to review those minutes? And then if there's any corrections to the minutes for either December or January, please let us know. Are there any corrections to the minutes distributed for the December meeting? Okay. Are there any corrections to the minutes distributed for the January meeting? I'll give you all another minute or so to review. Do I have a motion to approve the December meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of approving the December meeting minutes?
Aye.
Nays? Okay, so the December meeting minutes are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the January meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Great, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, hold on. Pardon my computer's technical difficulties. Uh-oh, my screen's going blank. I apologize, everybody. All in favor of approving the January meeting minutes for the Juvenile Justice Council?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
nays?
Aye.
All right, perfect. The minutes for December and January meetings have been approved. The next order of business for the Juvenile Justice Council is the chairman's reports. for the financial expenditures during during this month has been $854.19 for January. Our total remaining budget is $42,013.63. Now moving on to old business, updated priorities. Our first topic area is youth focus groups. Earlier this past month, Julia met with the Director of Equity and Inclusion from School District 129. And Julia, do you want to share to the group a little bit about your discussion and some of the feedback you received from the Director of Equity and Inclusion?
Sure. So District 129 had expressed interest in engaging in some of the youth focus groups and connected us with this individual, the Director of Equity and Inclusion. And she has basically gotten a group of youth together who are kind of like an advisory council, or going to serve as an advisory council, so to speak, to the district around issues related to equity and inclusion. And so her thought was really to have more of a targeted approach, I guess, in terms of getting input from the youth and trying to have more of like a purpose and a focus rather than doing an open-ended focus group. And so out of that conversation, we kind of just talked about perhaps if the youth are willing, kind of doing a panel and bringing them to the board of directors just to share their perspectives on issues that are affecting youth related to equity and inclusion. And so my question to all of you is, would that be of interest? Would that be helpful to hear their perspectives? They may or may not have had justice system involvement or been impacted by others in their life having justice system involvement. But this was just, one option that we've discussed.
If I may, I think it's a good idea. Do we know the makeup of this focus group? My only hesitancy with when you go to those when you pull from only like leadership groups within a school, is that it might not be representative of the full demographics, so that we're really getting a true perspective on equity and inclusion. So do we know if these are, mainly kids with high GPAs and on a bunch of groups and, all of that upper echelon student, or is this a mix of all students of varying levels? That would be my only hesitancy.
And I can get clarification on that because I don't know the exact answer. I want to say that it is a mixed group of youth from different dynamics, but I don't want to say that for sure. So I will double check on that factor.
Can you clarify also, Julia? So issues of equity and inclusion within the school district, what is it exactly?
So the Director of Equity and Inclusion has formed this group to work with the school district to really look at like school district policies. And so the idea was that the original person I talked with, which was the Director of Student Services, she had said, maybe we should pull this individual in. She has this group of kids that she's starting to build up. Maybe they would be open to doing like a focus group for our purposes, in addition to what they were already doing with the district. And so I met with this director, and that's where this idea came out for them to do like a panel presentation, or like she wanted them to be able to prepare a piece ahead of time before the kids would interact with stakeholders or elected officials within the county, but really giving them an opportunity to share their voice. So she had shared it that she had convened a couple of meetings, and at one of the meetings, one of the students was talking about just her perspective of how her racial and ethnic background interacts with different aspects of her life. So really just speaking to that personal experience and her how her culture comes out. So does that help answer, Judge?
Yes, thank you.
I think it's at least a start, because that's something we've been talking about with this council for a very long time, that we really haven't had much of a youth voice. So, I mean, I think it's promising. And even if this the only group, maybe it's a start, and we can try to get a group with more diversity in the future, if possible, if it's not already there.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Josh.
And I also think too, it's been tough this year with student schedules, and I think all of our schedules to get something really going. You know, from March until now, it's been tough. And I know working with some other groups, we're really trying to push forward to our youth what are appropriate ways to advocate for areas they're interested in or causes they're really behind. And so I think it would be a good way for students to learn what are good ways to get the attention of stakeholders. And then also my second part is, I don't know if this is possible, but I know with school boards, how they have a youth representative. Is there any other juvenile justice councils that have a youth representative on the board?
So that is the end goal. If we could ideally, get to that point where we have a youth representative or even an advisory board for the council made up of youth. I think we started with these focus groups because we didn't we were running into barriers of how to make that happen, but that is the end goal ultimately, is to have that.
Any other feedback on this topic? So I think for the group and for the board, is this something we should pursue in specifically West Aurora, having their group prepare a presentation for the Justice Council, and then potentially have follow-up with the members of that group?
I would say, yeah, move forward will be my input.
Okay. And I think, Julia, once we can kind of fine tune some of the logistics, we might just bring it back before the board, and hopefully we could have something before the end of the year. Just being cognizant of student schedules, and there's a lot of things going on in the education world right now. So, okay, good. The next topic area is the de-escalation videos. So Julia is continuing to work with Pam Ely to gather input from youth. Pam is currently meeting with youth in the detention center to get perspectives about how families handle conflict and what would be helpful for those situations. Julia, do you have any other information you'd like to add?
So Pam has given some summaries, and I know she's passed this on to staff within court services as well. And I just the input that she's getting from the youth has really had an impact on on my perspectives, and it's just really enlightening to me. So it was refreshing to get their perspectives and hear where they're coming from. And so I am hoping once Pam has been able to meet with all the youth that she wants to meet with, and her and I can reconvene and figure out, how do we make this useful? How are we going to use the information that we've gathered? What could be helpful in sharing it with, the board or even the council, because they're really valuable perspectives that the kids are sharing.
And remind me, Julia, what are our next steps with the de-escalation videos? Is it just to have a platform where families can access them?
So part of this collaboration with Pam is to get input from the youth to figure out what they feel like would have helped their families in moments of conflict, especially ones that are in detention because of adolescent domestic battery. Because my concern is, and I think we've talked about this on the board, is we put together this video and then it doesn't get utilized. So really continuing to flesh out what this video could look like, what it needs to include, and make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck, basically, and putting that effort towards it.
Pam, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, and I had asked Julie about this last time. So is it kids who are in detention because of domestic battery charges? I believe is asking all of the kids, and it's really a general, she's got kind of like guiding questions that she's asking them. So it's not specific to adolescent domestic battery offenses per se, but it's asking, what causes conflict within your home? What do you think happens when the police arrive? But our data has shown that kids are coming into detention on adolescent domestic battery. But I know that there's also been discussion that once after they come in, then we try to get them out, and they're not staying in there for it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, those kids don't typically get held in detention who came in on domestic battery charges. So just for clarification, I guess, and to make sure that whatever questions are asked of the kids then are more general.
Yeah, they are. And really, I think it's just trying to understand, that the conflicts that are occurring at home, even if it doesn't result in a domestic battery charge directly, just trying to, again, get a better perspective of what they're seeing, in their families.
I have a quick question. Is this something that once it's done that we would be able to almost make into a shortened or mini roll call video to push out to police departments? Because I think it could be helpful for officers to see, the perspective of the youth that they may not see anywhere else. Again, I don't know what would go into as far as, releases and confidentiality and names and stuff, but I think that could be helpful, just to show some of these, if they're interviews or whatever they might be, with these kids who clearly have been involved with the police, to give officers maybe a different perspective.
So you're saying to the stories that we're capturing, to be able to share those with officers?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's possible. I don't know how long this stuff is, but just something to think about, that it could be helpful, especially, if it's like a 10-minute story here and there, push it out as a roll call video to the departments to show the officers who are the first ones showing up on scene. Here's the perspective of a juvenile who dealt with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can bring that to Pam, and I imagine it would be a bigger conversation with Latanya and Lisa as well, and probably Mike Davis. I don't know. Latanya,
very quickly, it definitely wouldn't be able to show any faces. I think it would probably be better or easier to just have maybe someone else reading the story, or having somebody else write up, what some of the key phrases maybe they got from the stories of the minors, that then be presented. So it's more generalized, could potentially use just the initials of the kids or something like that. But any identifying information would not be able to be part of it.
Yeah, and even if, a male, in Kane County, something, again, we don't want to know the identity, but just to gain that perspective, because officers can see it and be like, wow, that's really helpful.
Yeah, I never thought about it from that way. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So any other additional comments regarding the de-escalation videos? Okay, great, thank you. So moving on to law enforcement trainings, strategies for youth has been a constant on our agenda. The SAO Civil did not have an issue with the private funding source. Do any of you have any additional thoughts about this topic area? And Julie, for some of our newer participants, can you remind us what exactly the Strategies for Youth initiative is?
Yes, so Strategies for Youth is the organization that does the Policing the Teen Brain training. I know I've spoken at length with our law enforcement partners about the extent of this training. It's pretty comprehensive. It's very intense, and it runs upwards of 40 grand to do it, plus then some, because they do an assessment of what's in our community, and then they kind of tailor the presentation or the training and do really a training of trainers potentially, if that's one package option that we could choose. So again, it would require a lot of commitment and time of the law enforcement partners. We had just put a pin in this from our discussion in the fall, and Rochelle was looking into the funding issue. So basically they had said that they have funding from Motorola to supplement some of the cost. So we were looking to see if that was going to be an issue, and we were told that it was not. So I'm just putting it back on the agenda again, just to see.
Any thoughts from the group, or is this just, should we table this topic for the time being?
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about it to speak on it. I haven't been around in those discussions, so I don't know if you want to wait until when it's not as many designees here, because we haven't been a part of a lot of those discussions.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we should probably table that to the next meeting when, as you stated, not as many designees. And then also article topics. Julie, can you describe this a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, so back in November, one of the ideas that the council had agreed to was writing an article and submitting it through the legalese newsletter that the state's attorney's office puts out. So we put the one out on adolescent brain development, just to share, about different topics to help continue to educate in the law enforcement community, knowing that training, they're being pulled for, all kinds of training. So just, trying to offer snippets of information or topics that may be helpful or resourceful. And so I just wanted to bring this to the board to see if there was another topic we wanted to do, to write about. I have an idea, but I wanted to open it up to others. So the idea that I have, I'll jump in and just share that we're doing that law enforcement survey. And one of the questions I feel like that has come up, and there's a little bit of discrepancy from the survey results. And so I'm going to lean into the law enforcement partners on this one, is an article that differentiates between like the behaviors involved with adolescent domestic battery and intimate partner abuse. I don't know if that would be helpful, because I think sometimes when we think about domestic violence, I don't know if that's if we're thinking of the behaviors in the same way, or if that contributes to decisions that are being made.
I think anything that you want to put out that could further explain and maybe help get a better understanding for domestic violence would be helpful for law enforcement as a whole. Especially with how things are changing now and just the past year, how things have been. So I think it would be helpful.
Really, I'm also wondering too, as people come up with potential topic areas, if we can just email it to the group, or just email it to you, and then that way, if there's topics that come up before the next meeting, we could have them presented during the next meeting.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay. Julie, no, I would agree. I think that as a topic matter would be very beneficial.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, parent engagement. No new updates really in this area. The Children's Mental Health Grant continues to offer parent cafes as a means to engage parents in our local community. But again, as we all know, it's been really difficult to really engage with parents during this time, and how things are still going with the pandemic. So no real new updates in that area. In the area of
I'm sorry, Josh.
Nope, go ahead.
Can I add? I just had an update that I got last night, so I just want to put it out there as it relates to parent engagement. The Children's Mental Health Grant is also forming a parent council for Kane County, and so there's a couple individuals that are, one from the health department and then one from COFI, which is now I'm not going to remember what the acronym is, but it's a parent advisory organization, so to speak. But they're putting together this parent council, and so they're recruiting parents who have either experience or have been impacted by mental health or children's mental health in some form to come and participate on this council. So if you know of parents or you want more information, I just wanted to put that out there that we can help make those linkages as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that update, Julia. Our next topic area of restorative practices. Recently, the subcommittee met and there is interest in offering a training of trainers. The cost of this training would still be approximately $10,350. Previously, the board has approved to have this training in person, but due to logistics and people's comforts, this meeting would be done virtually. What are the board's thoughts about this, of offering the training of trainers for restorative practices?
I think the more we get going with the training, regardless of the format, would be a plus.
I can tell you from my perspective, I think it would be good to get more trainers out there. Hopefully in the fall, we'll have a resumption of more in-person learning. And I think the more educators we can get through this training, but then also those that have been through the training, a refresher course would be much needed. I think for many of us, if we haven't practiced certain skills for a year or longer, we kind of forget some of those skills and some of the questionings and different strategies that educators have used in the classroom. And so, you know, I know some of the districts I'm speaking with, they're going to try and offer refresher courses, which remind me, Julia, isn't a refresher course required for the yearly license, even for the non-trainers, or no?
No, it's not.
Oh,
It should be, but that's also a topic of discussion. How do we support the implementation? How do we have those refreshers? And I think the IRP has lifted requirements for those that are trained as trainers. So like myself, they've lifted the requirements so I can offer the training virtually and I can break it down a little bit more. So I think that'll help too with some of those refreshers.
And so I know this topic has come up in the past. We've debated about a memorandum of agreement, specifically having those that are trained through the Juvenile Justice Council have to be able to provide trainings to partners that wish to have members trained. For the council, is there certain areas within the memorandum of agreement that we think that trainers should have to provide certain services or provide a number of trainings?
I would say because we're supporting it financially, there would need to be, in my opinion, some type of commitment, either to meet the need of an organization within the council, or that they're going to do so many within their school district, because ultimately, the more that they're training, I'm just choosing a teacher, the more that they're training within their school district, that practice is going into play, which would hopefully have an impact in our system as well. So I would say that there would need to be some type of agreement as to how many they are minimally agreeing to provide if we're paying for it.
It could be almost like for a grant, where you have to do a grant report at the end of the grant year, or else subject to forfeiture or some kind of a penalty, pay it back or something.
To kind of piggyback off that comment, I'm wondering if there's a way we can better track the data. I'm not sure with some of our prior cohorts that went through the training, if we're able to, track the amount of trainings or the number of participants that were trained through the trainings. I'm wondering if we could set up something like that to at least, justify, training the trainers, and just to get a better scope of the outreach and, how many teachers we're impacting.
You're saying do that retroactively, or doing that ahead of time and just setting that structure up?
Yeah, I think going forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of the trainers are gone.
Yeah, it can, education can be kind of a transient field sometimes. We hop and jump around. Any other requirement ideas that the council has for the potential participants? And then Julia, would this be something, since we're changing the mode of instruction, would the council have to vote on to approve it being conducted virtually, or would our prior votes still be approving the training?
I would imagine, because we didn't move forward with the original and it was more specific, I think that we would need a new vote for this one. So we can either, because it's expenses, we may save that to the March.
Okay.
Instead of doing an email vote. But I would like to put together or work on that memorandum just to make sure that we have the language. We already had it started. So we can kind of just pick back up and get things finalized.
Okay. So great. Any other comments regarding restorative practices? Moving on to racial and ethnic disparities. Julia, can you provide us an update for this area?
Yes, so the racial and ethnic disparities, I guess, team, so to speak. So myself, Josh, and then Latanya and Lisa from Court Services, we had met to do that. We have met twice, and we're meeting again in March, again, to really take a deeper look at the data and focus in on some of the racial and ethnic disparities that exist. And so one of the endeavors out of that that team or those conversations that we're having is the law enforcement survey. So we launched that in January, and I was annoying about it and sent emails every single week and tried to clarify that we'll take responses from multiple people, multiple representatives from departments. But we have 39 responses so far, and we have 20 different departments represented in our responses, which I'm really excited about, because I feel like that gives us a pretty good starting point at the very least. And there's a lot of variance in the responses. Some responses, it's pretty, everyone is kind of agreeing on things. So I think it'll be really helpful. So I'd like to put together like a report based on that data, and then we'll talk in amongst the reg team and just kind of see what we want to do next, and potentially bring that back to the board as well to share some of those results. And again, we want to be able to use this data. That was the whole purpose of collecting it. So figuring out our next steps with that. And then building on that, the board had also expressed interest in a data presentation with the Juvenile Justice Commission, who they work with the Center for Prevention, Research, and Development, I think is the acronym. There's too many acronyms in my world. But they're out of the University of Illinois. So we had talked with Sean Freeman, if that name rings a bell. He has since left the CPRD at the University of Illinois, or has transitioned roles. And so I am now meeting with someone else from there, but they have assured us that they will help us with this data presentation. So this is to look at our detention data, potentially look at our arrest data. So they have access to those statewide systems and can provide us with some information about some of the trends that they see in those systems. So I did have some questions, and I know I'd sent an email. I got a couple of responses so far, but right at the time I had sent that email, I was told that Sean Freeman was leaving. So I just kind of took a step back and decided we could bring this back to the February meeting. So really the discussion items that I'm hoping to get from the board members is who we're looking to extend that invite to, so we can kind of tailor that presentation. Do we want more representation from law enforcement and or elected officials, or how far out do we want to extend that invite? I know there was board members who had expressed specific interest in attending. And then do we want to record this presentation so that we can share it, maybe even in conjunction with some of the results that we're getting from the survey, and just really have a really rich discussion around like the data that we're seeing and how we move forward based on that data. So those are kind of the topics up for discussion.
I think having more law enforcement could be helpful, just so, again, we have more of an audience to present that data to. As far as who, again, that can, be figured out later, but I think that could be helpful.
I think recording it would be a very good idea and would be helpful to discussions.
Okay.
Any other comments on this area?
I would just say, just to kind of piggyback, in addition to law enforcement, we would want to make sure that we're inviting representatives from pretty much all of the stakeholder offices, state's attorneys, public defenders. I think that this topic is something that hits all of those, and we might as well discuss it all at one time, or at least receive the data related to it and a presentation of that at the same time.
Well, I think it would be really interesting to see similarly sized, well, there aren't that many similarly sized counties in Illinois, but see other counties and compare, because obviously we know there's disparities in Kane County already. So the question would be, is it something within Kane County that could be done differently, or is it more of a statewide problem? Are we similarly situated to the other counties? So when you said that part of that, getting more data, will that give us a comparison between counties?
We could certainly ask. We could ask to see if they can take a look at how it compares to even like the counties surrounding us. And you know, Mike, you bring up a good point too. Maybe even looking at, there's other counties that have detention centers. What's their composition as compared to our composition, and how do those compare as well? I think that could be interesting to know, you know, what we're doing well, or are there opportunities?
Okay, I think that'll be kind of an ongoing conversation for upcoming meetings. Moving on to individual meetings, Julia has started meeting with different partners of the council. Julia, do you want to share a little bit about your meetings and just the rationale behind this?
Yeah, so this is just really giving, so this is something that the commission has encouraged the coordinators to be doing. It's giving us an opportunity just to kind of, again, take a step back and meet with individual stakeholders to learn more about, you know, their priorities and what's been helpful with the council, especially if they've been involved with the council up until this point. Josh, I'll use you as an example because I met with Josh already. And it was really helpful to get Josh's insights because Josh has been here since longer than I've been here. So we're going on about 6 years now. So it was helpful just to kind of reflect back and also have some of those reminders about how stakeholders have to balance, you know, the priorities of what the council's doing, but then also obviously their main focus is their jobs. And that's always a helpful reminder for me because I'm council all the time. So they've been helpful. So I have been trying to reach out. I know schedules are busy. I'm going to continue to try to reach out and get these scheduled. There's no time frame per se on getting them done. So my hope is just to really do as many as I can between now and the end of the fiscal year. But I'm making notes of the conversations that we're having, the themes that are coming up in those conversations to help inform some of the initiatives that we continue to do. And especially as we're looking at what we already have going on, how do we keep, you know, building on what we have based on the perspectives that have been shared.
Great, Julia, thank you. And so moving on, current expenditures. This has been an ongoing discussion item. As I noted earlier, we still have roughly $42,000 within our budget to spend for this fiscal year. I know we've been having some dialogue about potential services or trainings that we could bring to our county to help with juveniles. But does the group have any other ideas or suggestions for using all of our allocated funds for this grant year? And then maybe Julia, what areas are we allowed to spend grant funds for?
A lot of it is around like training. Obviously, it's personnel for my position, but then really training supplies. I do want to look into though, and that's kind of where my questions were coming from in the past couple of months. If there's gaps in services or youth accessing services, can we help supplement the cost, especially for diversion efforts, to try to keep them out of the system if they're not able to afford services or some sort of, diversion program. Can we help supplement the cost? I haven't looked into that because I don't know if that's the direction the board wants to go. But some of those specific needs I can certainly look into. But the one thing I know we can't spend it on is food. So that has always been a thing.
So if a board member has an idea, would it be best for them to email you directly, and then we could put it on the agenda for following meetings?
Yeah, an idea or a need. I've been sitting in on site visits with the commission, which that's a later agenda item here, but I've heard some comments there. I've heard some comments in other discussions. So if there's a need, then maybe we can potentially look into that as well to see. I know one of them is around Spanish speaking service providers. I don't know that we can hire Spanish speaking service providers, but if there's a way to attend to that gap, kind of looking into that a little bit further. So even if it's not an idea of how to spend funding, if you're seeing a need, just feel free to pass it along.
How are we doing on our supply of all those cards and informational things that we printed? I think that was over a year ago.
Yeah, because everything is virtual, that's a great question. I can look into that because I have not distributed them by any means because I've been pretty much virtual. So I don't know what the need is out there. I know the detention center was putting out the flyers or the handouts at one point. So I don't know if that supply is diminished or not.
What were the handouts?
So we had 3. We have one that's just a general parenting handout, like tips and then resources that are available. There's one for mental illness. So just kind of understanding the basics around mental health factors. And then now I'm blanking on what the third one was. Anyone want to refresh my memory, or I can take a look really quick.
Was it
the resource card for the officers, the officer resource card?
That was the SAS and CCBOIS was a separate one. So we did do that. I have not heard if there's more of a need for that one.
Yeah, right on cue.
What?
He's holding the card.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Josh has it. Yes, that one was for SAS and CCBOIS. So I haven't heard if there's a need for that one out there. Gosh, what was the third one? Oh, internet safety. I'm sorry.
We still do have some families come in, and one thing which I think would be great would be to put all of those types of flyers and pamphlets and cards in some sort of folder that we could give on a first appearance to a family and say, here's a list, or here's a folder with lots of different types of information that you should just hang on to. So that they have something in one central spot, as opposed to, sometimes they may look at the table to pick something up, they may get something in court, but I've not seen a lot of those things be given out even before the pandemic. So I think it would be nice to have it in some sort of just folder that every family gets a folder.
LaTanya, do you, in court services, do you guys hand out like a orientation packet or anything?
No, and now that you say that, Judge Parker, we talked about this, and I remember even, I don't know if we purchased the folders, we were waiting on information from NAMI. I need to follow up. I know we were waiting for things from NAMI because we were going to include that in the folder, and that just completely fell off of my radar, I'm gonna be completely honest. So I had to follow back up because I know our support staff were ordering the folders and trying to get the packets, and I'm not sure where that landed.
I think it was
so. No, the question is.
I think it was
right in the middle. Maybe.
That's why probably then everything changed.
Okay, so I'll try to pick that back up. But Julia, no, to your question, we're working with them on a diversion, that's something totally different. But once it's referred to court, there's no packet or anything that, because we wouldn't even have contact with the family at that point.
Okay, I guess I've seen other departments do like kind of, it's not like an orientation packet, so to speak, where it's got like, here's kind of the definition of the different terms that you may hear. It's got, you know, resources in it. So I didn't know if that was something that you all offer, or if you, to Judge Parker's point, if you feel like that would be something that would be helpful, that you want, it'd be helpful for the council to put together.
We can definitely explore it. Like I said, it was something that's totally fallen off our radar, but we can.
I like that concept. I think it would be really helpful. It would be nice to have it in English and in Spanish, just when we do our first appearances, to be able to have a family leave with that, so that if they're referred to any services, the phone numbers are there. They just, like you would at a school fair or whatever, you leave with a ton of information that you can reference and save if you want.
I think that's a great idea too.
With that topic, do you think it might be beneficial to almost have like a little subcommittee, you know, if that's an area you want to go towards, to come up with some ideas and topics and just informational pieces to include within that packet?
Are you asking me, or are you asking
Or
anybody?
just in general?
I would gladly welcome the input. So if that's if we're willing to do that, then I will reach out and get input, who wants to be included in that. And even if you can't participate in the subcommittee, just share your ideas of what should be included in that.
Well, put me on the list, because I already have some stuff already. So
Yeah, and I'm happy to help too.
Yeah, you put me on the list too. Thanks.
Okay.
And I will say, we used to, granted, this was probably 20 years ago when I was at the JJC, but I mean, we used to have a whole wall full of all sorts of things and all sorts of resources. And I don't think we had little folders, but I know the judge used to hand to new people, hi, here's a whole list of things. We used to have huge, I mean, they weren't in a folder, they weren't in a nice folder, but we used to hand out a lot of information to people who came in at the beginning. I don't know if I can dig in the recesses of my mind to remember exactly what all we used to hand out, but I know every first appearance there was a huge packet of stuff that we used to hand to people, and they were in English and Spanish. So, and we used to have tons of stuff on the wall. I know we can't do that as much with just having people like go through pamphlets anymore, but we could probably arrange something. But
that's kind of a point a couple of years ago when we started talking about this, the idea was we had so much information out there, all of it being disseminated differently into different people. And the idea was, how do we get kind of a system in place where if there's an interaction with a family in Kane County, that family is getting basically the same information, whether it's Elgin, Aurora, CAC, wherever it is. And so that's why we were kind of trying to develop these materials and then distribute them out so that the people are getting the same not getting overwhelmed with too much information, and basically everybody giving the same information, right? Isn't that what we were trying to do with what we were printing and distributing? We were trying to get some uniformity in what people were being given when they interact with the system.
The expungement pack especially. I think there was a lot of different packets that we found. That's where I think that kind of started, and then we started making these other materials, like you're saying, Mike. But the expungement packet, we definitely found that there's different versions that were being kind of distributed throughout the county. There's different information, so some that were outdated, some that weren't. So that's where that definitely came from. But I think that it's also been a topic of discussion, like a resource guide and that kind of thing. And the trouble is that those things become quickly outdated based on how resources change. So I know we've let go of that, but I guess what I'm envisioning, and we can, definitely talk offline and the subcommittee, is really more just one that's really specific to you're now in the juvenile court system, and here are, just common things that common terms you're going to hear, processes, that sort of thing. Here's some resources that may be helpful that you may hear about, or you may be referred to while you're with us in the court system, kind of thing.
And there are a lot of materials in the hallway. That wall still has it. I don't know that people take them. I think it's one of those things that there's so many different things, you don't know what to use, and people are kind of laser focused on what they're coming in to do, I feel like. And so I don't think there's ever a depletion of what's out there.
Yeah, over here, we have stuff on the walls too, and the bailiff gives it out. And if she doesn't have all the stuff, then they only get parts of it. I love the idea of a folder with things in it that we can just give out almost from the bench. I think it'd be a great idea. I gotta sign off. I gotta get ready for 1 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Judge.
Thanks, Judge.
And again, I will move quickly for the sake of time. And so I think we'll table some current topics that we could use funds for. And so the next topic is the book club. We've been talking about this for a while, and I think we'll table this for our next meeting in March. Moving on to new business, a county board representative. We have a vacancy for the position on our council for the county board representative. Rochelle is sending a letter to the county board chairman to request a designee. Next, with site visits, I wasn't able to participate in these, but Julia, can you just share a little bit about the most recent site visit?
Yes. So those who have been a part of this for at least this year's discussion, we knew site visits were coming. We had asked for ample amount of time to prepare and to give the stakeholders time to prepare and arrange their schedules. We received the request 3 weeks ago, and we were given like a week to coordinate everything. So I'm just putting that disclaimer out there with my apologies for the last minute request. But we were able to, we're only looking to meet with 4 stakeholders per site. And so we were able to do that. So I ended up reaching out to the stakeholders who have interactions with juveniles and would be able to respond to some of the questions that I was guessing that they were going to ask based on previous site visits. And so those seem to be, they seem to have gone well. They seem to be pleased with our responses. Every time that I've been able to sit in on some of them, and they've been very complimentary of the work that we're doing in Kane County. And there's been a few comments about, lifting up some of the specific initiatives and things that we're doing in our county too. So it's kind of just a quick overview, a quick summary of those site visits, but they have been completed as of 11:50. Thank you to Judge Parga. So.
Great, thank you, Julia. And then lastly, any other updates that any board members have for the group? I will just share, not directly related, but all educators in Kane County have the availability to obtain the vaccine this week. So there is a mass effort going on over at the fairgrounds. I was able to get mine this morning, and it is wrecking me. So I apologize, group. I am trying to soldier through. So I am trying to get through this, but, and then also I know with my staff, with remote learning and hybrid learning, truancy has been way up this year. And so we're working on ways to help re-engage families for next school year. And my office is also working on completing an RFP for grant funding for next year. So if anybody wants to be a part and help provide feedback for truancy services and how the ROE can help improve student absenteeism in the county, please let me know, and I'd love to pick your mind to see how we can improve services for students. So. If there are no other updates, our next Board of Directors meeting is scheduled for March 11th at 12 p.m., either at the State's Attorney's Office or held virtually through Zoom. And so now looking for adjournment, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Awesome. So the meeting is adjourned at 12:56.
Mike, how are you?
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you all so much for joining today.
Thank you.
All right, bye everybody.
Feel better, Josh.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Bye now.